Good morning, viewers. It's a beautiful morning today in People's Voice newspaper media. And today is our current affairs segment, and we're going to be discussing on the recent Apc Muslim to Muslim ticket. And here with me on the studio today to discuss about this is usual political and public analyst, Mr. Abdul. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Please say something to the audience.
Thank you for having me. It's a good day today.
So, like I just said, we are building up to for 2027, and we just have this from the APC, quarter, the Muslim to Muslim ticket. What do you say about it?
Well, looking at the political environment, the Muslim ticket debate has always been there, even before the 2023 elections.
Yeah.
It was a major talking point for most people. And now that the government has nearly completed its first tenure, it is still an issue of conversation, because a lot of people are looking at more inclusion in government. And people tend to want to see government that reflects them. So Muslims will see a Muslim leader, and the Christians too want to see a Christian leader amongst, from the presidency. However, if you look at the spread across the country, you realize that there are some states in Nigeria where you have Muslims and Christians, and the governor and the deputy governor are from the same faith. That means that such states have not made it a major issue. They've not made it a major issue that would determine their perception of government. In any case, we are in Nigeria, and religion is a major talking point in Nigeria. However, what I do realize is that the religiosity or religiousness or religious leanings of any particular leader does not affect the competence of that leader, the outcome of their policies. And then you will see, for example, Nigerians will want to know in 2027, how has the president being a Muslim impacted
both the Christians
and the Muslims.
Muslims.
Are you getting me? Do Muslims feel safer under this government? Do Christians feel safer? These are some of the the issues that will be on the minds of most Nigerians. In any case, they have made their decision because of the political exigency, probably because they feel it's the winning ticket, as against replacing the vice president with someone who is a Christian. Northern voting pattern is usually, framed around the religious identity of candidates. But that does not mean that they cannot support somebody who is not a Muslim, because in the north you have also a lot of Christians in the north.
But we hear from some of the northern political elites talking about the Christian to Christian vote, and there is somebody like is that Ahmad or whatever came up recently and said the North will not be voting a Christian president, something like that.
Well, if you hear things like that, the first question is, who is that person? Is he a mouthpiece of the North? Because a lot of times the choice of the political elites is not exactly the same as the choice of the voting populace. For example, in 1999, when there was a transition to democratic elections, we had two candidates from the South who were Christians, and the North voted for a particular candidate en masse. So they were both Christians, and they were both from the South. So it is not a function of what a certain person says. He may be speaking to appeal to his own base, but that speech does not determine what happens, because there is, there are lots of Christians in, you look at the North Central, for example. There are lots of Christians in the North Central. There's there are lots of Christians in Southern Kaduna. There are Christians in Bauchi. There are Christians in Gombe. There are Christians in Borno, Southern Borno. There are a lot of Christians in Adamawa State. There are lots of Christians in Taraba State. So they will also partake in all of this. So beyond what you hear verbally in terms of the actions, and the process of electoral processes that will ensure that we have a leader at the end of the day.
So simply what you are saying now, whatever he has come to say, he does not represent the will of the people. So what do you not think about talking about equity and fair play? Because we know Nigeria, though Nigeria ought to be a secular country, but we have religion playing most of the decisions in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So what do you not think, in looking at fair play, having Christians fully represented as well as the Muslims fully represented, how do you think it's going to affect the upcoming election?
So if you look at the whole conversation around the religious identity of the president and the vice president, you'll see, for example, that some time ago the Murik in the southwest, Muslim right groups in the southwest, were saying, concerned that the president has been making a lot of appointments from the southwest, that the appointments does not reflect the religious identity of the southwest, that they are mostly Christians from the southwest. So regardless of how the permutation is, you will have people who feel excluded. But I will always say that regardless of what the identity is, the question should be, what are the deliverables for this person? Because yes, you could decide to have an inclusive government that has all the that meets the religious identities of people, but if you do not deliver on ground, it's still a major issue. Because for all I know, you need a driver, for example. You do not worry if his identity is Christian, Muslim or not, or if you need a surgeon because you have an emergency, a health concern, you do not care the religious identity of the person who is treating you. Nigeria is in a state of emergency, and the person who must lead us, apart from having an inclusive government, must not show bias towards any religion. Yes, beyond competence, it must not show bias towards any religion. It must not show bias towards any region. Now, no matter how you do the permutations, we have over 300 ethnic groups in Nigeria. If you want to set up a ministerial appointment, for example, you cannot set up a ministerial appointment that will cover all the concerns of all the ethnic groups. And mind you, we even have we have non-religious people in Nigeria. Most times nobody looks into their issue.
Because that's a part of religion too.
Exactly. we also have people that are African traditional religions. Nobody says, okay, you know what? I want somebody who is of this
African traditional religion, or a taste.
And a taste in my you understand, cabinet. We are more interested in the competence, the deliverables of, based on your promises as a president, before you were elected, and then what you are able to deliver on ground. These are the issues that are more pressing. Nigerians will continue to, share their opinions and concerns, but I honestly believe that we should be more concerned about their deliverables, what they are able to do, how their promises match the action on ground.
Now, before I say this, kudos to President who just increased the salaries of the military in Nigeria. That's a good level. And again, for his fairness, while he was the governor of Lagos State, he was known for playing very fair, both to the Christian, the Muslim. There was no kind of being biased. So I believe he has also shown the same during the recent tenure, in this present tenure, I beg your pardon. And now, what would you like to say to Nigerians, having said all this,
For me, I want Nigerians to continue to look at the issues that we have on ground, the issues that tie us together. How has security improved? Let it determine how Nigerians vote in 2027. Let them tell us how much of jobs they have secured. How much access do youth have, to opportunities. Let us know how, if food is more available, if it's more accessible, are farmers better off today than yesterday? What is the purchasing power of the average Nigerian? The government can say that it has increased the minimum wage, but if the cost of food is high, Nigerians will still go hungry, because the statistics still continue to point out that a lot of Nigerians are falling below the poverty line. Some of these issues should be the driving forces in the campaigns that lead to the election of 2027. And this is both to Nigerians who are voting and to the opposition who are going to galvanize Nigerians to vote. I keep saying it, that the more Nigerians who are able to come out to vote, the more likely for the opposition to win. The less Nigerians who come out to vote, the more likely for the incumbents to win. So Nigerians must look for how to galvanize the opposition. Or galvanize Nigerians who are not contented with the current situation. And it is that huge number that will set, set everything rolling. Because you can take examples from Ghana. They had over 63% voter turnout before Dramani Mahama defeated, the party in power. The same thing happened in Malawi, where the president who was ousted came back, and I think the voter turnout was around 70-something%. The same thing happened in Botswana. But in Nigeria in 2023, we had about 23% voter turnout. And that basically handed, the ruling party victory, in spite of a lot of complaints about unemployment and other indices of governance.
Before we go, I just almost forgot it. Is there no way in Nigeria we can actually exclude religion from a secular state? Nigeria being a secular state, what about we going beyond religion? Having nothing to do with religion? Because I just remember something somebody somewhere said, this is going to help if we come back to Muslim ticket again. It's going to lead to the Islamization of the country. So it's going to lead an Islam favor country than ever. Because this is the time they want to actually fulfill and finish what they have started.
The first question that we want to ask is that in the 4 years of the government of Tinubu, how much of Islamization has happened? I get to me. What do you see in Nigeria that shows that we now have more Muslim preaching or whatever? It doesn't reflect that there will be Islamization. For me, I do not have an issue with the religious identities of the individuals in government. You will see, for example, in the Southwest, we've had situations where both the governor and the deputy governor are Christians. We've had situations where the entire Southwest, in spite of the sizable number of Muslims, the entire Southwest was run by, in fact, for example, at the moment, Oyo State has a Christian governor, Osun State has a Christian governor, Ogun State has a Christian governor, Ekiti has a Ondo. In fact, the whole of the Southwest right now are under Christian government. But Muslims do not agitate and say we want these things to change. Because they did not just emerge out of the blues. There was a process. And in the entire process, there were no complaints up to their emergence. We could have another situation where the entire Southwest will change from having Christian governors to all Muslim governors. It will still not be a problem. The most important thing is that what have you promised and what have you delivered? However, Nigerians, focus on things they cannot do anything about. For example, you cannot do anything about somebody's religion. You cannot change him into something else. Therefore, you must make peace with the person's religion and say, in spite of you being who you are, do I feel safe around you? Is the country safe around you? Can I go to bed knowing that nobody is going to harm me at night? Can my children go to school knowing that they are going to get education without somebody coming to kidnap them on the road? That safety, that sense of safety is what binds a country together. Because a lot of times, I tell people, if we have existential threats, like the threats of Boko Haram and kidnappers and all of that, and they think in one voice, even though we know that they have a divergent understanding of religion. If we have in the military or in our security apparatus, people who believe that this one is hellbound, they cannot work together as a common force against ragtag, criminals and bandits. Because already, right in their mind, they are thinking they are working with the enemies. But if you believe that you have the same purpose as a people, and you are working towards making a better country, where you yourself, your children, your great-grandchildren can feel safe, you work together against the common enemy. So that is one of the things that we must emphasize, that regardless of our religion, We must emphasize our competencies. We must emphasize our combined, strength to defeat our enemies.
Thank you so much. What will be your parting word today to our audience?
My parting word is for every Nigerian who is of age to ensure he gets his PVC, ensure he, reminds his neighbors and friends and families to come out on the day of election to vote en masse, because your voting power will determine how much stake you have, in the next government that emerges in 2027. Not voting is already you putting yourself, in a difficult place. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. So, you've heard from the horse's mouth, and we also want to encourage you, go out there and get your PVC. And when you do that, you go forward for voting, and you have the right competent people on leadership. Thank you so much. God bless you.